OPEC and allied oil-producing countries, including Russia, will cut their supplies to the global economy by 100,000 barrels per day in October, according to the Associated Press. Now, this rolls back the 100,000 barrel increase from this month, following a statement from Saudi Arabia that the OPEC coalition could reduce output at any time, resisting, of course, Biden's demands that they produce more oil. And while the supply cut is only a fraction of the 43.8 million barrels per day produced under OPEC, oil prices jumped after the announcement. Meanwhile, Russia's gas supplies to Europe via the Nord Stream pipeline will not resume in full until the collective West lifts sanctions against Moscow, according to FT. Now, Europe's been in an energy crisis for months, with many seeing a huge increase in their utility bills and gas prices surging by 36% yesterday following Russia's announcement. Overall this year, Europe's gas prices have surged more than 300%, and while the EU is trying to come up with a plan to intervene in energy markets, the UK's Wheel of Fortune gave people this opportunity.
Okay, here we go. So we'll pay your energy bills. Got £1,000 as well. So this is energy bills, I think, for 4 months if it stops on that.
Nice.
So how are your energy bills? Are you a bit worried about it all?
Major.
Yeah.
Are you?
I've got one of these prepayment meters, and it's absolutely murder.
Oh, God.
Right, well, let's hope it lands on one of those then.
Whatever,
right.
You're going to win some money, so don't worry. Here we go.
One way or t'other. Here we go. Round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. Dun, 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 dun. £1,000 or energy bill. £1,000 or energy bill. It is going to be... It's your energy bill!
Oh, my God, thank you.
We're paying your energy bill for 4 months.
Oh,
That's a suspenseful moment there with the wheel.
I was deeply invested in this, but also it's so sad that our economic situation, the energy crisis, has made every game show into Squid Games.
I didn't watch Squid Games.
The stakes are so high. The idea is that people are...
That's like the battle royale.
I'm surprised at you,
I know.
Robby.
I know. It's something I would watch.
Well, the idea is having a game where the stakes are actually life and death and significant. You have to fight for your ability to survive. And
good thing we put all those sanctions on Russia for what? Again, they're doing fine, and the rest of the world is suffering. And we have such a confused energy policy in here domestically, trying to move to a green model, but then going and begging countries like Saudi Arabia for oil. It's sick. It's obscene to beg Saudi Arabia for anything because they're a immoral country, a country that behaves, that sponsors violence and terrorism, and what they did to Jamal Khashoggi. But we have to make nice because we need their oil. But then we don't think oil should be the model for the future, and it's just so confused.
Yeah, I think I did a radar a while back, trying to tee up and compare, the kind of bad acts that Russia is accused of versus the bad acts that Saudi Arabia is accused of, and try to make exactly that point. It's not about absolving anybody of any behavior, but the idea that we need to engage in a conflict in Ukraine because Russia is very bad and their oil is, not good enough or somehow tainted for us, but Saudi Arabia's isn't, has always been an odd fiction.
As Donald Trump said in a moment of perfect clarity that whatever you think of him, he sometimes would say the quiet part out loud in a very helpful way when he was asked, I think it was on Fox, or I think by Bill O'Reilly, well, Putin's a killer, right? And Trump said, a lot of killers, Bill. You think we're so innocent? Which is true. It's just all of these countries, including ours. Now, I don't think we haven't invaded another country for a couple years now. It's been a whole long time.
There's ways to go about things that are a little less explicit than all-out warfare, unfortunately, these days.
But we're involved in some bad things, and we criticize it a lot of the time. And so is Russia, certainly, but so is Saudi Arabia, and so is all of these places. So to try to make a moral stand against Russia that's impoverishing us, it's hurting Europe, killing Europe. Look at that. I mean, look at that game show. And it's not hurting Russia.
Yeah.
They're making more for the oil exports they are doing because the world is starving from oil. So it's like you're squeezing them and then they just charge more and it doesn't amount to anything. Sanctions rarely seem to me like they create the desired policy outcome, especially if the policy desire was regime change. It's not going to happen. Didn't happen. We tried it. Maybe it was worth trying because there was some chance, I guess, it was going to stop the invasion of Ukraine. But I know a lot of people, we interviewed a lot of people on the show who were skeptical that this could ever work. And guess what? Those people ended up being right. It didn't do anything.
And more than that, there is this interesting tension right now between the rhetoric about Russian oil and the idea that we didn't need it and that Europe was going to be fine without it. And now people who are very angry at Russia for daring to basically turn the sanctions table around and say that we're not actually going to give it to you. So journalist Benjamin Norton, who's a leftist anti-war journalist, tweeted an article showing that EU chief Ursula von der Leyen insisted Europe didn't need Russian gas back in February before Russia even invaded Ukraine. But now she claims Russia is evil for not selling Europe the gas she said the EU didn't need or want. Her tweet said that Putin is using energy as a weapon by cutting supply and manipulating our energy markets. He will fail. Europe will prevail. It's difficult to understand how people are managing the cognitive dissonance of saying that it is somehow cruel and unusual if Putin were to withhold oil, but not for the West to implement sanctions.
Right. It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Do you think this speaks to the need to be energy independent? Because I, frankly, used to be not skeptical of the concept, but like, well, it doesn't really matter if it's produced here or there. We're a global integrated economy. We should specialize in what we should specialize in. Other places specialize. We trade, in the most sort of basic economic sense that benefits everybody. But it breaks down if you have other countries that turn off spigots, or we have these military conflicts, and then we don't want to subsidize you or help you, and we're going to cut off contact. But then our whole economy works on the basis that we're going to get stuff from China and from Russia, et cetera, and it all gets integrated. If you didn't have, nasty warfare messing it up, I guess it wouldn't be a problem. But the reality is you do, and we simultaneously want to trade with these countries because that benefits everyone. But then we also want to enforce on that. We also want to shame them for doing things that they don't like, and they don't like that.
Robby, an argument that leftists have been making for some time is that the whole point behind the propaganda around capitalism and our imperialist efforts to make sure that the rest of the world subscribes to our identical economic system is exactly for that reason. It's exactly because our ability to dominate that economic system depends on people not divesting from it entirely. And I 100% agree that energy independence is important. I think that we are one of, if not the greatest oil exporter at this point. Obama bragged about making, increasing American exports, and we are, in many ways, I know that conservatives push back against this, maximizing our output. But even if you don't take environmental concerns into consideration, the reality is that this is not a renewable resource. You can't extract forever. And of course, as we're seeing with a third of Pakistan underwater, there are real consequences for us continue to pump these global warming emissions into the air. So I agree, absolutely, we need to be energy independent, and that requires attention to things like green energy, actually investing in new climate research, windmills and the like. And also there's an ongoing conversation about reliance on nuclear energy, and the environmental community is divided on this, but that's part of this energy independent strategy. However, oftentimes people have not made that same calculation, and people don't see that as a national security issue in the way that I think that they should.
Well, going back to something you said at the beginning of the remarks you just made, someone of my ideological bent would say that forcing our will on other countries militarily or having conflict with them because we don't like what their military policies are is not part of is actually directly contrary to the goals of capitalism or to a capitalist system, because capitalism just wants to produce the most value and the most money through trade and mutual cooperation. Not if we're blowing things up is economic destruction.
If the free markets were really that sweet and the
if we had free markets, you wouldn't have governments at all, and you wouldn't have the most maximal free government, free markets.
No, the argument is that if capitalism was as appealing universally as people claim it is, that people would be able to and would want to come to it willingly instead of at the end of a gun, like it has so often happened in the course of international affairs.
But we're not forcing capitalism on them, we're forcing democracy on them.
Literally the domino theory, the whole point of it is that you don't want all of these countries falling to communism and having a bipolar world and alternative
political
economic
system of communism, not to... I mean, what market economies have won out in that even democratic socialist countries still have market economies.
You think the Cold War was about the United States just feeling very passionately that people in the Soviet Union shouldn't be living under a political ideology? You don't think it was about a economic warfare? And you think the IMF doesn't go around forcing its economic terms on all of these third world countries, including developing countries like Ukraine or economically
No, it absolutely does.
countries like Ukraine, because it's trying to force them into our own economic terms?
But what I'm saying is that that's not truly a capitalist thing to do. That's not actually within the spirit of capitalism.
Okay, well, you might have to check in with the capitalist leaders there who aren't following it to a T, but I think this is the case that a lot of us have been made. There was never such thing as a genuinely free market. There was never such thing as genuinely free competition, especially on a global stage. And I think that you make a really good point when you look to
unfortunately,
the
and including within our own country.
Right now, yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll have more Rising for you up next right after this.